Hello and welcome to the topic Introduction to Cinema. We begin with mise en scène. The fictional films we see are created using various elements of film construction. You are always in need of a setting or a location to shoot and a balanced cast of actors who will be dressed in certain ways and use certain props while delivering certain predetermined lines. Settings, actors, costumes, props, a script and the derived footage to be edited and added music, all these constitute your film. Any successful approach to the study of films must be based on the idea that they are constructs put together by filmmakers from a series of common component parts which can be identified and named. Of all the techniques of cinema, one of the most important is the mise en scène. This is what you may recall after seeing a film rather than its other technical elements like cuts, camera movements, sound, etc. Yes, it can be the costume, settings, the chilly lighting or the vivid look of a misty street that you may recall from a particular scene of a film. That is what constitutes mise en scène. The term mise en scène was used in film criticism in the 50s by the film critics of Cahiers du Cinéma, an influential journal on cinema. In French, it means putting in the scene. Mise en scène was first applied to the practice of directing plays. When applied to films, it signified the director's control over what appears within the frame of the individual shot. The thinking was that a film's mise en scène consisted of everything that the camera sees: the setting, the lighting, the actors, their performances, costumes, makeup and props. It also referred to how those elements were arranged within the frame. In other words, it was synonymous with the shot's composition. Using mise en scène, the director stages the event for the camera. One of the earliest masters of the mise en scène technique was Georges Méliès. He could create imagined worlds in his silent films of late 19th century. Basically a caricaturist and magician, Méliès became fascinated by the Lumiere brothers' demonstration of their short films in 1895. He built a camera based on an English projector and started filming moments of daily street life as done by the Lumieres. One day, while filming at Place de l'Opéra, his camera got jammed as a horse-drawn tram was passing. And when he resumed filming, the tram was gone and a hearse was passing before his camera. During editing, he realized that a moving tram got transformed into a hearse, which to him demonstrated the magical powers of mise en scène. Soon he started creating mise en scène related actions for his camera. With his experience in theatre, he sketched shots beforehand and designed sets and costumes in a small studio titled Star Studio. His desire to create magical effects led Méliès to control every aspect of his filmmaking. It helped him create fantasy worlds in films like A Trip to the Moon and The Impossible Voyage. Méliès, who is called an illusionist and cine-magician for his surreal, innovative experiments, thus demonstrated the great range of technical possibilities offered by mise en scène. Understanding mise en scène. To understand mise en scène, we can mark out four general areas: setting, costumes and makeup, lighting and staging. Setting. Setting plays a more active role in cinema than it usually does in the theatre. Here in films, the drama that you witness on screen can exist even without actors. as the shots of backdrops or the nature can play the true leading character. Thus, in cinema, settings can come to the forefront. It need not be only a carrier of human events, but can dynamically enter the narrative action. Lush green countryside, barren mountain plains, tropical jungle, rocky seashore, or snowy forest suggest a storyline as well as conflict that is very different from a Gothic cathedral, inner city ghetto, thatched cottage, or morose institution. The set, in other words, might represent exactly a particular place, or it might be deliberately constructed. For instance, tilted buildings with minute windows and slanted doors might be constructed ingeniously to orient viewers to a world wherein ideas can be expected to differ from their own. Whether selected or constructed, real or surreal, setting functions differently to orient viewers, to contribute to dramatic impact, and to add meaning to the film's narrative. But the best of the settings are the simplest. These sets are made up of everything that could contribute to the feeling of the story, removing anything that does not do this. Any thoughtful filmmaker can control his settings in many ways. One way is to select an already existing locale that suits a script and to stage the action there. The barren lands of Western films are typical examples of this kind of selection. Real locations but containing too much that is extreme or contradictory need some simplifying to suit the need of a script. Thus, many things that appear complicated will be taken out. Sometimes tones and colors are unified to add to the real mood of the settings. But this strengthening through simplicity is much easier to achieve on a built set than in an existing location. It is due to that the filmmaker constructs the setting which can increase his control over the available environment. In France, Germany, and the United States, the possibility of creating a wholly artificial world on film led to several approaches to setting. Some directors emphasized authenticity while others were less committed to historical accuracy. Masters like D.W. Griffith studied the various historical periods presented in his film Intolerance before actually constructing the sets for it. His set for Babylon in the film constitutes a personal image of that city. Similarly, in Ivan the Terrible, Sergei Eisenstein freely stylized the decor of the Tsar's palace to harmonize with the lighting, costume, and figure movement so that characters crawl through doorways that resemble mouse holes and stand frozen before allegorical murals. Colors can be an important component of setting. Changing color schemes appropriately contribute to the development of the mood of the film narrative. When the filmmaker uses color to create parallels among elements of setting, a color pattern may become associated with several props. A full-size setting need not always be built. Through much of the history of the cinema, filmmakers used miniature buildings to create fantasy scenes or simply to economize. Parts of settings could also be rendered as paintings and combined photographically with full-sized sections of the space. Now, digital special effects are used to fill in portions of the setting, such as the creation of cities in films like The Phantom Menace and The Fifth Element. Selecting, constructing, and arranging elements of setting all give the director powerful control over his art. Staging the event for the camera, the director exhibits craft and creativity as he uses this aspect of mise en scène. Props. Filmmakers create props to manipulate a shot setting. A shot for propetru. This is another term borrowed from theatrical mise en scène. When an object in the setting has a function within the ongoing action, we can call it a prop. At their simplest, props work to give an authentic sense of place. props can be used in more complex ways to suggest important characteristics of particular individuals or even key themes for the whole film. Sometimes filmmakers use props to generate humor. In the course of a narrative, a prop may become a motif. In a classical example from The Psycho, the shower curtain is at first a harmless part of the setting, but when the killer enters the bathroom, the curtain hides the lady from our sight. After the murder, Norman Bates, the hero, uses the curtain to cover up the victim's body. In this way, props or costumes can take on a considerable significance for the whole film. Thus, they can, in effect, become symbols for some key idea or concept. Costumes and makeup. Costume can have specific functions in the total film, and its range of possibilities is immense. At its simplest, costume clearly acts as a type of uniform, linking a character to a particular group and often to a rank or position within that group. But costume can also announce a character, giving an insight into what this person is supposed to be like, for instance, shy or flamboyant. In some films, costumes may be quite stylized, calling attention to their purely graphic qualities. Throughout Ivan the Terrible, costumes are carefully orchestrated with one another in their colors, their textures, and even their movements. Directors concerned with verisimilitude or historical reality often go to great lengths to research clothing style, textile, and even dye likely to be used by people of a certain era, for costume is an indispensable means of establishing authenticity. Costume as an aspect of mise-en-scène in film, however, gains even more significance when directors manipulate costume so that it functions in special ways in the film as a whole. Costumes can play important motives and roles in narratives. Costume also can hint at character development in the film. When an innocent, normally dressed in pale frocks, switches to siren red, the audience recognizes a gain in experience. To think of Dracula is to recall how his billowing cape enwraps his victims. Costume is often coordinated with settings. When the filmmaker usually wants to emphasize the characters, settings may provide a more or less neutral background, allowing the costumes to stand out for its characters. Many of these points about costume apply equally to a closely related area of mise-en-scène, the actor's makeup. Makeup was originally necessary because actors' faces would not register well on early film stocks. Up to the present, it has been used in various ways to enhance the appearance of actors on the screen. Over the course of film history, a wide range of possibilities has emerged. Changing the actors to look like historical personages has been one common function of makeup. Today, makeup usually tries to pass unnoticed, but it also accentuates expressive qualities of the actor's face. Since the camera may record cruel details that would pass unnoticed in ordinary life, any inept blemishes, wrinkles, and wilting skin will have to be hidden. The makeup artist can sculpt the face, making it seem narrower or broader by applying blush and shadow. Film actors rely on their eyes to a very great extent, and makeup artists can often enhance eye behavior using eyeliners and mascara. With expressively shaped eyebrows that hints gaiety or sadness, every actor reinforces the impressions that assist their performance. In recent days, the craft of makeup has developed in response to the popularity of horror and science fiction genres. Rubber and plastic compounds create bumps, bulges, extra organs, and layers of artificial skin in such films. In such contexts, makeup, like costume, becomes important in creating character traits or motivating plot action. Lighting. Often seen as a part of camera use, lighting overlaps both mise-en-scène and cinematography. Lighting in cinema is much more than just illumination. The fundamental choices in lighting are whether to use natural lighting or not. Often natural lighting is supplemented by lights set up by the film crew. A highlight is a patch of relative brightness on a surface, highlighting its texture. The use of bright lighting sources usually suggests an atmosphere or attitude to life that is obviously dissimilar from the relatively dark lighting setups used in film noir films. Lighting creates two types of shadows, each of which is important in film composition: attached shadows and cast shadows. An attached shadow occurs when light fails to illuminate part of an object because of the object's shape or surface features. If a person sits by a candle in a darkened room, patches of the face and body will fall into darkness. This phenomenon is shading or attached shadow. But the candle also projects a shadow on the wall behind. This is a cast shadow because the body blocks out the light. These highlights and shadows also help us to create our sense of a scene's space. Lights also affects the way colors are rendered, both in terms of hue and depth, and can focus attention on particular elements of the composition. Hard lights created by a narrow, intense beam of light gives sharp-edged objects and shadows a distinct mood. Soft lighting is created by a broad, more diffuse beam that gives soft-edged objects and shadows. Different lighting methods include frontal lighting, side lighting, back lighting, under lighting, and top lighting. Frontal lighting can be recognized by its tendency to eliminate shadows. Backlighting, as the name suggests, comes from behind the subject filmed. It can be positioned at different angles, high above the figure at various angles off to the side, or pointing straight at the camera. Used with no other sources of light, backlighting tends to create silhouettes. This use of backlighting is called edge lighting or rim lighting. Top lighting is where the spotlight shines down from almost directly above the scene and above the character's face. Overhead lighting usually casts heavy shadows, conceal the eyes, and create an image of a mysterious face, often conveying danger. Underlighting, as the name implies, suggests that the light comes from below the subject. It tends to distort features and is often used to create dramatic horror effects. At times, it may also simply indicate a realistic light source such as a fireplace. Lighting from below challenges the regular lighting patterns derived from the sun overhead. This can give a strange and ghostly look to artists on screen. In side lighting, the left or right half of a character's face may be lit while the other half remains in shadow, perhaps again suggesting a person with dark and light aspects to their character. Side lighting, which creates sharp shadows, is often used when the features of a character or an object play an important role in the development of the narrative. Classical Hollywood filmmaking developed the custom of using at least 3 light sources per shot: key light, fill light, and backlight. The key light is a primary source providing the dominant illumination and casting the strongest shadows. The key light is the most directional light and it usually corresponds to the motivating light source in the setting. A fill is a less intense illumination that fills in, softening or eliminating shadows cast by the key light. By combining key and fill and by adding other sources, lighting can be controlled with precision. Backlighting is a process of illuminating the subject from the back. Here, the lighting instrument and the viewer face each other with the subject in between, creating a glowing effect on the edges of the subject. Backlighting, by its very nature, increases contrast in your images. 3-point lighting emerged during the studio era of Hollywood filmmaking and it is still widely used. It was well suited for the high key lighting used in classical Hollywood cinema and other filmmaking traditions. High key lighting refers to an overall lighting design that uses fill light and backlight to create low contrast between brighter and darker areas. Usually the light quality is soft, making shadow areas fairly transparent. Color. As with the setting up of a lighting pattern, a cinematographer's use of colors can also add to the effect of a mise en scène. Colors can be used in highly artificial ways for particularly expressive purposes, or it can be employed to achieve naturalism by recreating the colors of the real world. The fundamental choice of color or black and white may often be an economic decision, but it may also be a more creative one, like in the cases of the black and white film Raging Bull, which looks back to boxing in the post-war period, or Schindler's List, in which the story is set amidst the horrors of the Holocaust. Spielberg's decision to film Schindler's List in black and white is considered to be the masterstroke in the film's aesthetic success. It allowed him to echo newsreels and documentaries of the Holocaust made at the time, thus establishing historical context and a feeling of authenticity. Cinematography. Apart from all of the elements discussed, the filmmaker also has within his or her control the manipulation of our physical point of view through camera work. Camera and lens technology has developed throughout film history, permitting increasingly complex camera work. From the days of black and white film, when the cinematographer has to resort to more imaginative ways to get moving shots with a heavy wooden camera, the lightweight cameras of the 50s made it easier to take the equipment out on location. In mise en scène, the movements of the camera and its positioning adds to the feel and look of the scene. It can be turned left or right to follow a subject within a horizontal plane, or tilted up or down to follow the same subject in a vertical plane. It can also be moved at any speed towards, away from, or around the subject. This movement can be as smooth or as shaky as the filmmaker decides, according to the demands of the sequence filmed. With the use of camera movements, apart from the variations in distance and angles, the cinematographer can also move the camera while taking the shot. This could involve panning to left or right to include more of a scene, or bring into view additional objects, or tilting up or down to create a similar effect. But it could also involve moving the whole camera along on a track known as a tracking shot, or simply on wheels known by the name of a dolly shot, or even on a crane called a crane shot. Finally, shots could also be handheld and therefore deliberately shaky. Carefully done tracking and dolly shots in films like Run Lola Run demonstrate that these sorts of uses of the camera can be employed to create a particular atmosphere and involve the audience in the experience in very striking ways. The essential point made here is about the immense possibilities and choices open to cinematographer and director, who, when working in tandem, could make a spectacle out of every film. These attempts at mise en scène, adapting the existing grammar of filmmaking, generate meaning that could be univocally accepted by those who are watching it. Staging. As with setting, the performance and staging of the event is important in the creation of mise en scène. The performance always revolves around movements. These movements can range from the whole body or the smallest gestures of actors, which convey some meaning. The movement of the actors are coordinated in ways that helps us to understand given characters and relationships between characters. Characters sitting with their backs to each other present a certain sense of relationship, while characters moving towards each other and embracing clearly present another different sense of relationship. Apart from these obvious meanings, the performance and movement between any two characters offer a limitless range of possible alternatives. Actors are able to generate audience response to their performance in a whole range of subtle ways. The range of body codes include their general appearance, head movements, facial expressions, gestures, body posture, eye movement, direct bodily contact, and the proximity of one character to another. The extent to which characters stand with their bodies turned towards or away from each other, and paralinguistic codes or aspects of speech such as pitch, stress, tone, volume and accent add to how we understand a given situation. Choices for interactive movements will be made for particular reasons by those involved in the creative process. There is of course a further obvious dimension to cinema, that of sound. This might be said to operate today on three levels, that is via dialogue, sound effects and musical accompaniment. The uses to which sound can be put range from merely enhancing a sense of realism to helping to suggest subtle aspects of character or theme. Mise en scène usually involves some planning, though at times accidental and unplanned derivatives result. Jean Renoir, Robert Altman and other directors have allowed their actors to improvise their performances, making their films' mise en scène more spontaneous and unpredictable. Judging mise en scène by standards of realism often raises many problems, as notions of realism vary across cultures and even between generations in the same race. Many critically acclaimed and realistic performances of yesteryears were later considered artificial, like a medieval epic. But this lookout for reality can in fact blind us from the immense possibilities of mise en scène. In the classic film The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, the depiction of rooftops certainly does not accord with our conception of normal reality. The film uses this technique to preset a madman's delusion. Here, the mise en scène is created using the conventions of expressionist painting and theatre. And thus, when we examine the functions of mise en scène, it must be noted that while some use mise en scène to create an impression of realism, others might seek very different goals. Mise en scène can thus trigger comic exaggeration, supernatural terror, understated beauty, and any number of other functions with equal efficacy. The analysis of mise en scène must be the analysis of how it is motivated, how it is worked out, how it works in relation to other film techniques. A film is constructed from the elements ranging from settings, cinematography, editing and sound. The possible combinations of these elements available to filmmakers are endless. Mise en scène is basically a critic's term referring to the content of shots that appear in the finished film. And since it refers to the content of the shot, then it also must refer to camera movements, since panning and tracking changes the shot's content and composition. Though each element of mise en scène is combined with other elements to create a specific atmosphere in every film, studying elements of mise en scène separately helps the viewer understand the function of each particular element. By focusing on the setting of a scene, the viewer can identify the exact importance of the time and place that he is shown, so that he can think about the scene in relationship to the proper historical or cultural context. Costume-like setting helps the viewer understand the action of a scene in relation to a larger context. It also allows the director to develop important character traits of his characters. Lighting can intensify or subdue a setting, but regardless of its effect, lighting is one more tool that the director uses to complete his cinematic statement. Therefore, lighting should be a vital concern to the student of film. And by studying and dissecting these elements as separate entities, the student of film can begin to appreciate the artistry in filmmaking and to realize how meanings are created through the use of cinematographic language. Before we move to the next session, please try to answer the following questions. Consider the opening shots of any film you have seen recently and analyze its settings. Why do you think such settings are chosen? Also discuss how it was appropriate to the film. Choose one or two scenes from any classic movies and write a 600-word analysis of the way in which the acting performance is used to convey meaning and elicit emotional response from the audience. Watch crucial scenes from a film of your choice and write an analysis of how the props are used intelligently to create potential meanings for us as spectators. Write a commentary 1000 to 1200 words discussing the ways in which one or two of these elements of film construction work to create meaning and generate audience response in your chosen sequence. Write a short piece 400 to 500 words explaining the meanings you see as being created for the audience and the responses likely to be generated by the use of light and color in this short sequence. Books for your reference are Film Art and Introduction by David Bordwell, McGraw-Hill, New York. Cinema Studies: The Key Concepts by Susan Hayward, Routledge, London and New York. Essential Cinema: An Introduction to Film Analysis by J. Lewis, Boston, Wadsworth. Hope this program was useful for you. Thank you for watching it. See you next time. Until then, goodbye.